Sounds good.
Yeah, like, well, it's, yeah. Okay, so if we're recording, then pressing go live. Go live. Yep. And then I gotta do that.
It says we're live.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna check your Facebook page.
Yeah, I just have to make sure that I push the
Nothing on Facebook yet, but
nothing yet.
sometimes it's a little lag time.
Yeah, there's a little lag. I could try, so you can see what's going on with the well, here, I'm gonna try this while we're doing that, work on, see what the screen share feature, let's see. Oh, there's a lot of bells and whistles here. Yeah, you see the images there?
I do, yeah, they look great.
I wonder how that would work though, because I'm screen sharing on the
Now, I don't see anything on Facebook yet, though. Do you?
no, I don't. It may just be a little, let's see, because it says it's, let's see. Ooh, not trying to do that. Yeah, I think we are. Let's just see if there's, it should, it is saying the light is on, it's recording.
Well, at minimum, we know that we're recording.
On. I see we're on.
It popped up.
I'm on my phone. So one introductions while we're waiting for our guests. So hello, everyone. This is attorney Robyn McCoy with Politico Coffee, and I'm here with the wonderful and incomparable attorney Tracey Martin.
Oh, thank you, Robyn. You're so sweet. It's really a flattering introduction. And, I was going over your bio, and, this is just so impressive that, one time you interned for the former U.S. Senator Carol Mosley Braun, and you tutored elementary students in the Chicago public school system, and you were mentored by First Lady Michelle Obama during your senior year at the University of Chicago. That is fabulous. And, it's great to see the First Lady, just days ago at the inauguration.
Yes, I saw that they were showing on Tiffany Cross, the Cross Connection today, the designer Sergio Hudson, who's from Atlanta. They were talking to him about how he came up with her, the idea for her designs, like from his fall collection. And yeah, Happy New Year, because I know we haven't been on a little bit of a hiatus, but Happy New Year, everyone. Again, this is Politico Coffee with Robyn and Tracey. And so yes. Yeah, I got my mug. I've got my USA mug here with herbal tea. What do you have?
So I brought my Senate mug back again, but it needs to be updated because it has Mike Pence's name on it. I got to get the one with Kamala Harris, our new vice president. And, interestingly enough, this has the numbers of everyone in the U.S. Senate, their phone numbers, their office numbers. And it's just amazing. I got this from Resistance by Design. And like I said, I'm going to get an update. And inside, I've got a sweet tangerine positive energy tea. And, with this being 2021, we've been through so much with this pandemic, and it's ongoing, as everyone knows, and we've got this new mutant strain. I just want to inject some positive energy. And so I'm drinking this tea, and it's sometimes I put a little dollop of honey in it. Not today, but it's delicious. And I do feel the positive vibes.
Right, and I have in my tea, I have green tea and I have burdock tea. Oh, and I see Sherry is joining us. I'm going to admit her.
Oh, great.
So she is joining us on this, what is this? This is January 23rd, 2021. I see you got your pearls too. Hello, Sherry. Oh, we got your Yes, welcome, welcome. So to our show, Political Coffee. We've been, as I was saying earlier, we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back for this special edition, and then we'll be coming back in February. So how are you doing?
Doing wonderful. How are you both?
Hi, Sherry. Happy New Year. You look
Same to
fabulous.
you.
I love those pearls.
Yeah,
Thank you.
still buzzing off of our inauguration for Biden and
Oh,
our
yes.
first Black Asian woman vice president, Kamala Harris.
Right. Yeah, I am too. Hence the pink lips that match your dress.
Yes, yes. And I know you've been pretty active. I've seen you. You've been actually been out and about even during the pandemic. And now you have a new position. So for the audience who may or may not know, Sherry is a former state rep and is now on the Detroit
In my district, District 8.
Yes.
Yes, in Tracey's district. And so yeah, I know you've been out and about. I know you've been affected like all of us. I'm sorry to hear about the losses in your family. We've had,
Thank you.
Tracey and I have both had some losses in our family.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm excited to have you out as our first guest for this new year. I know that we before the pandemic hit, we had planned to have you and Isaac Robinson and Tanisha Yancey come out and talk to Black women lawyers in Michigan about how to run for state rep. And then Corona rolled up and changed everything. Just, I still want to have you
Everything.
and talk about that, maybe at a later date or with Black women lawyers. But yeah, so we definitely wanted to have you on the show to kind of talk about just some of the things that you've been up to. I know we've got you on the roster for Black women lawyers to come out on February 4th to be a part of our Harriet Tubman Social Justice Forum to talk about expungement and the One Bad Night, that legislation that you sponsored. And now you're on the school board. And then you also, we were pleased to hear about the release of the former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. So why don't we start with that? So yeah, kudos to you. I know there's some of us lawyers. Isaac actually spearheaded that, us writing a letter to the president, and we sent a message to the White House as well. But yeah, why don't you talk about that? What motivated you to get involved with trying to help the former mayor be released?
So it's been a number of collective issues. You guys hear me?
Yes.
You guys hear me?
Perfect.
Okay. Yes, it's been a number of collective issues, and I was just able to and happy to lend my voice after the original clemency application was put in, I believe it was February 2017, by the former mayor's pastor, as well as a number of local pastors and elected officials that were part of that initial effort. I had a chance to meet Jerron Smith, who was the senior appointee in the president's cabinet, the former president's cabinet. And Jerron's African-American guy who was working in spearheading opportunity zones. And I had a breakfast in DC during the Congressional Black Caucus. My former chief of staff, Burton Brown, introduced us and told me, hey, this is a guy that I believe you should meet. He'd be great to work with. And I met Jerron and we hit it off, and I invited him to be my speaker. He was a little afraid at first, being that it was a predominantly Democratic setting. And I assured him that the leaders that we would have at that breakfast would be happy to hear from him. They were not going to be combative. And he's our brother on another side of the aisle. He came, he spoke. It was a great opportunity. Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, Council President Brenda Jones, Spivey, Tate, I believe Benson, as well as Commissioner Martha Scott, Commissioner Jewel Ware, the late Jewel Ware. It was, you name it, Chairwoman Alicia Bell. They were all at this breakfast. And we had a chance to just talk about urban issues. And, some folks had some sidebars. Art Blackwell was there, Keith Williams was there, and talked about the importance of the president letting Kwame Kilpatrick go. And we had a subsequent and follow-up breakfast to that in 2020. I believe it was near
And
and about
did you
January. I
end up
gotta look at
going,
my dates. I get it.
Sherry, did you end up going to the White House during Black History Month to actually talk with
Yes.
the
So
former
that
president?
followed, right. So that followed my invitation for Jerron to come to Detroit, and he came at a follow-up breakfast where Mayor Yap and some pastors present, Bishop Van was present, asked that he get word to the president to move on the clemency application. So he saw that both settings, the breakfast I had in DC, the breakfast I had in Detroit, were both great opportunities to just network with African American leadership. And he took that serious. He invited me to DC during the African American history, or had my name added to the invitation list for the U.S. African American History Celebration that was at the White House. And I talked to some folks locally, like, so should I go? I mean, this invitation is from President Trump. And so the folks I talked to said, yes, if you have a reason. I'm like, well, the reason is to continue with the ask that we've made regarding clemency. And so they said, by all means, go. I believe it was Art Blackwell said, well, just don't go taking no pictures. And if you do, make sure the picture is focused on the letter and getting the letter to him. So I got a letter signed by a number of my colleagues, and I took that letter there in February of 2020. And we went on, took the letter, saw the president, spoke with him, and I asked him, to look favorably. What I told him the content of the letter, who I was, what the content of the letter was. He said that he would look he would look into it. He was familiar with it. He would look into it. And it just seemed like a good, albeit brief, but good conversation where I know he heard me and he made a commitment to look into it. I also had a chance to, briefly engage with Jared Kushner, who Jerron Smith worked directly with. But I was like, I don't want to just give the letter to his staff. I wanted to actually give it to the president. So the opportunity came for me to give it to the president. That's what I did. And Jerron and I continue to stay in touch over the last year, back to back. And he assured me that Kwame would get an opportunity. Clark Durant, charter school proponent here, I reached out to him when the family asked me to get some help because Oakdale Prison was experiencing very high rates of COVID. And, a couple of people, had very fatal experiences at Oakdale. And so I reached out to Clark Durant to get his assistance to get a communication in to ask for compassionate release. That opportunity was confirmed, and he was scheduled to get out on compassionate release in May. And the U.S. attorney here pushed back on that, and that offer was rescinded. And as you remember, the warden of the prison was removed and replaced by another one the next day. So, but I'm glad in hindsight that compassionate release didn't happen, because if it had, he might still be out on compassionate release and not have gotten commutation.
Right.
Interesting. Interesting. Sherry, I've got a question for you. So there's been a lot of confusion about the difference between executive clemency in terms of commutation versus pardon. And we know that our former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick actually received a commutation of a sentence, which obviously let him out, gave him his freedom. But do you think that there is a chance that our current president, Joseph Biden, will consider a full pardon for Kwame Kilpatrick? What do you think his chances are?
So this is an interesting conversation. I would venture to say no, but I
Okay.
don't know. Uh, and the reason I don't know unless there's someone that is still going to push that agenda with the Democratic Party. Our current governor did go on record saying his crimes were, and I'm paraphrasing, egregious, but the time was excessive. Um, Getting a pardon would allow him to regain his license to practice law. It would also remove the need for ongoing payments, for the lack of a better word. I forget the term escapes
The
me right now.
restitution?
The restitution,
Restitution, thank
the
you.
1.5 million, I think
one-
I've heard reports, 1.5 million and then 800,000 owed to the city of Detroit.
Right, yeah. So, I guess it's close to what, 2.3 million when you add it all up. There's been some conversations about forgiveness, et cetera. I don't know the reality of that, but a pardon would address that, I believe, versus the commutation, which basically at this point says time served, but does not restore his ability to practice law or his ability to run for office at a state or city level. I do understand that he can run for office at the federal level, however.
Okay,
That's
and
my
have you had a chance
understanding
to talk
too.
to Kwame directly or any of his family, his mother, any of his family to see how, I mean, I know we saw a picture and I probably will share the picture that we have with him and his father, but have you had a chance to talk to him directly to see how he's doing? I know we saw a picture of him. He was skinny, great, and we'd heard he'd had some health issues and things like that.
Yeah, so communicated with his sister Ayana. I have not talked directly to Kwame.
Okay.
Communicated and with other friends of the family that basically were, very gracious and appreciative. Finalized. It's like I said, it's been an ongoing collaborative effort. I know the health issues were during compassionate release was that of any respiratory challenges and asthma that could be kind of spiked up with respect to COVID. But ultimately, I believe the mayor is in pretty decent health. Working out, losing weight, eating, light in prison, and then worry. Worry can do this to you. So I'm not certain about that, but he seemed to be in good health.
Do you think that he'll come back to Michigan? I know he's in Georgia where his father, Bernard Kilpatrick, is. And, we saw the photos. I've got a photo over my shoulder here of the reunion between our former mayor, Kwame Kilpatrick, and Bernard. Yeah, that was just, I can feel the positive energy coming through that photo. It's just fantastic. But do you think that he will stay in the state of Georgia? So much is happening in Georgia with these two new U.S. senators, John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, Reverend Warnock, who have ascended to the U.S. Senate. Stacey Abrams has been doing such a great job with fair fight and might be the next governor of Georgia. We've got Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms in Atlanta. Do you think he'll stay in Georgia or come back up to Michigan?
So I'm not sure. I think ultimately his passion for Detroit and a number of the people that are here will ultimately bring him here at some point. I just think that he deserves to be selfish with his time, with his sons, with his family, with his parents. And so there's times that Congresswoman Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick has come here. We've always, kind of met up for lunch, place and space to be with everything that transpired. But I believe their love for the city kind of still helps to, cover that in a way. And I think ultimately he'll be back here at some point. But I just think that there's a lot of energy, like you said, in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And to build on that, there are a lot of Detroiters in Atlanta. So certainly, it's a great opportunity for him to be there and to refuel his soul.
Right. And so now you're on the, I know you were a former state rep, and we have you slated to come and talk about the One Bad Night, your initiative or legislation on February 4th with Black women lawyers in Michigan. But so what has it been like? You're on the Detroit School Board. So what would you say is your objective as far as the upcoming year for the school board? I know that they talked in the news that they had some issues with some kids. I think they had said, I don't know if it was 10,000 kids that they were looking for to make sure that the kids are either online at home or coming into the classroom. And so can you speak to our audience more about that issue?
So I am a former Detroit public school teacher, and I have a master's in instructional technology. So certainly making sure that while we're in a pandemic, that our virtual learning platforms do have fidelity. So, working with our superintendent and other board members to make sure that while we are in this virtual space, that we give the support that is necessary to our parents, to our students, making sure that we're not grading in a negative way, penalizing students who have already had a very difficult school year, making sure that teachers have the professional development that they need so that they can continue building a stronger platform, a virtual platform, because even after the pandemic, there are so many opportunities for virtual learning that will help to even generate additional revenue in our school districts. So even students that perhaps might be homeschooled but want to take a class online to homeschool, but want to have access to our CTE program. So there are a number of opportunities to scale, and you still utilize virtual learning. And so I want to see that done. Safety, making sure that our children are safe. They're going to school in clean environments. Our infrastructure is up to par. Our HVAC systems are up to par, because while it wasn't necessarily COVID, a number of our teachers and children during the time where you saw the vermin, the respiratory challenges that some students have because of their predisposition to asthma, these things are a reality even absent COVID. And so it's important to make sure that we understand our school revenue, funding, and be able to advocate for additional funding or weighted funding out of Lansing. So I'm glad to have had the hat of being a teacher.
Oh, I think she might be freezing up a little bit.
With a technology background, but also serving in the legislature. Hello, are you guys there?
I'm here. I think
We're here.
Robyn?
Yeah, I see. It looks like on Facebook I'm seeing you. It's going, but there's like a little bit of a delay. We're still here.
Okay.
So, well, and I did hear that the governor was talking about having kids, something about March 1st being a target date to have the schools reopen. Can you speak more to that? Like, is that realistic? Is that going to be like, is it going to still be kind of like an optional, like some kids can go in person, some kids can go virtually? Because myself, I teach at EMU, and we started the winter term last winter in person, which is my preference, but then obviously COVID came up and then we switched to virtual. And then I also just taught this fall where it was all virtual. So can you speak to that issue about March 1st, like what that would look like?
So I think that's an arbitrary, from my perspective, it's somewhat of an arbitrary date that was just kind of thrown out there by the former MDHHS director, Robert Gordon, who's since been replaced by Ms. Hertel, Curtis Hertel's wife. I forget her name. But my question when they came out with that was, so shouldn't there be some conversations with urban districts, communities that were hardest hit by COVID? Shouldn't there be some conversations with school boards to determine what the needs are? It can't just be about a top-down suggestion of where we are with respect to school return, because all districts are not created equal. The problems that we saw with escalated rates of COVID in Detroit were not a reality in Troy or Livonia. So the administration has to think in those terms and with the mindset of understanding that the needs are different depending on the district. And certainly local control is important. Now I understand that optimal learning does not occur necessarily in a virtual space, but we want to make sure that the numbers are right. And I believe the percentage point that Superintendent Vitti has kind of pushed for was that the numbers remain below 5%. And we're somewhere around there now, or hovering at that point in the city of Detroit. And we're glad to see, the trend is trending downward. But again, we want to make sure that we're safe and we don't open back up and increase exposure again and then have to close again. I mean, we're almost at the end of the school year. When you look at winter break, Easter break, in a minute, everybody checks out in May anyway. So I know that there are some students who need in-person learning. And so now that we have instances where you have some educators who will sign up a volunteer to get the vaccination, perhaps that will help to minimize exposure rates. And if that's the case, teachers are safe, staff is safe, the learning centers being open to help children with special needs or those who need help catching up with remediation, those type of things will be put in place or should be put in place first.
Sherry, you mentioned about the vaccination and the rollout there. I believe there was an article in the Free Press recently that quoted a statistic that about 61% of Detroiters are reticent to take the vaccine. Plus, there have been issues with the rollout, although I know several people that have been able to make appointments. And, in fact, I know my husband, he's got an appointment. He's in that 65 and up group, and he's going to get his vaccine on Monday. But 61% of Detroiters are a little reticent. I know on social media, I took an informal poll and people want to take the wait and see approach. How does that impact the health of Detroit and any potential exposure for, well, if teachers are vaccinated, that's great. We know that students have low risk, but there could still be some exposure happening between the parents who aren't taking the vaccine, and we've got this new mutant strain in the mix.
So that is a reality. Having a fear, the Tuskegee experiment and otherwise, you look at the data on how African Americans historically have been treated by the medical profession. We have a long way to go to remove and absolve that fear. I've noticed that there are a number of local pastors who have taken the vaccination, law enforcement officers. So educators who are willing to do that and don't have that fear, they would be helpful in helping to run learning centers so that exposure rate is not there. The question I am awaiting, I'm not a doctor, although I am a former science teacher, is determining at what point of the population or what percentage of the population is necessary for herd immunity, such that we all will be better off because we've had a certain percentage that have ensured that, we've minimized the potential for ongoing exposure. So that is something I am looking into to determine what that is. The 13th Congressional District Commissioner Chairman Jonathan Kinlock had some experts on last Saturday, and I'm waiting some answers regarding what percentage of our population is needed for the vaccination to actually have herd immunity. But those things are real, and those things have to be taken into consideration. So that's why mental health will be important, even with those children, families who lost family. You have children that return to school. Oftentimes, we're not giving them counseling to address how they feel about the loss of friends,
right?
How they feel about the loss of family, and how they feel about the fact that they've been in isolation for 9 months, 10 months, and now returning back to school, what that looks like. So there's a lot going on that needs to be addressed.
Right. I had some of my students, when I was teaching, like even the winter term, one of my students had 3 deaths in her family, and she was telling me how she was struggling with everything. And I said I would work with her. I made sure to give her more time so she could complete her assignments. And I still do my work as an educational advocate. So I have a high school student I'm working with out of the Detroit area. And she's got some things going on. And I'm just really encouraging the students to really speak, be advocates for themselves. Also tell their parents or their teachers if they're having struggles. That's just better if we know about it and can try to do something about it as opposed to waiting till later on. But I would say communication is very important. Like my past fall term where I taught, I had some students, a couple of them, I emailed them, it's like they fell off the radar. It was just.
It's a very challenging time. Everybody responding in different ways. You have some people who are dealing with more stress in the household because of being quarantined. You have students who are exposed to abuse because they're in quarantine and they're not going to school on a regular basis. So these things do exist. There will be a great need for mental health support, and that is something that I would certainly be advocating for as a board member and as an academic leader myself.
Sherry, I've got to ask you this burning question. Actually, 2. 1, did you bring your mug today, and what did you have inside?
Yes, I actually do have my mug. It's one of my favorite cups.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
I actually have I have some cappuccino, homemade cappuccino.
Yummy.
There.
Yeah, that's.
I've been drinking on throughout the day.
I remember all of your coffee hours that you had for your constituents in the 8th district, and then you switched to the Pilates, which was great. I thought, for keeping your constituents fit. But this is my second question. You have such a rich and varied background. I don't think many people realize that you were at one time the legislative assistant and training manager for Detroit City Councilman DeLay Clyde Cleveland. You were the managing technology trainer for city council employees. You mentioned just a moment ago that you were a science teacher. You worked for the United Way of Southeast Michigan as the director of educational performance, and you were also a political campaign manager that ran the Detroit proposal as bond referendum. Of course, we know that you're a former state representative. You're on the school board now. What is your next move? Because there's been a lot of chatter that you might be making a big move by running for mayor of the city of Detroit. Any comments on that?
And you're also, by the way, a fabulous singer, which, amazing.
Oh, yes.
Singer.
Thank you. So, I think one day that certainly will be on my list. I'm not certain now is the time. I had announced it my 53rd birthday celebration last year at the International Marketplace. with a room of about 300 people, something we can't do anymore
Yeah.
right now, that I was exploring a mayoral run. And then COVID hit. Then I lost my sister. Then I lost my stepfather. And, then I lost my cousin. I mean, you name it. I mean, it was just, this is year just like 2020 was like that year that you don't want to see or remember. And it kind of derailed or sidetracked some of the things that I was considering doing, and convening the coffee hours and conversation about what a mayoral run would look like. It took us that opportunity away. I still have a number of people who are reaching out and wanted me to still consider running. But in going up against a candidate that has Dan Gilbert's pocketbook makes it very challenging, and all the corporate dollars that will be poured into, the current coffers would make it challenging, unless was a spirited movement of people that have gotten together and want to see a different candidate and lined up behind that candidate. So and that work can't be done just by me. And that's the thing that, when I get people who are inboxing me or emailing me or calling me, and trust me, it's not a day to go by that I don't get this. But I'm like, someone else has to help. I'm 53, but I started, in this work in my late teens and 20s. And so I've been running hard, like Clyde Cleveland, Alberta Tinsley Talabi. I mean, it's like, these are people, my godmother, the late Annette Rainwater, these are people that instilled in me, like, you work hard, you work 24 hours a day, we up at night when everybody else is asleep, we get lid drops, we knocking on doors, and that a handful of people that I could count on daily. I'm appreciative of the 53,000 plus. I would imagine seeing what that would look like times 10 running for mayor. And is the city ready? Are the people, line up behind supporting me, that are reaching out, that are organizing their own group, their own pack, and they're like, we're not going to give up on you just yet. And I'm like, okay, keep going. Let me know when you reach 1 million.
Right.
So I haven't absolutely.
Right, I hear you.
Yeah, I haven't absolutely
there for it to help you
Yeah.
make it happen. I mean, that's what we've seen too. I mean, with Kamala, we wanted to have a Black VP. There was a big campaign from all quarters to make it happen. So if Detroit wants to see its first Black female mayor, it's and Mayor Sherry.
Yeah, but I say why not? Because, I mentioned earlier, we have Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's the mayor of Atlanta. We have Muriel Bowser, mayor of DC. We have in Chicago, Miss Lightfoot. New Orleans has a Black female mayor. I mean, in Detroit, it's long overdue.
Right.
And I can't think of anyone more suitable and viable than you, Miss Gay-Dagnogo. And I hope to see a run out of you one day, and hopefully sooner than later, for mayor or Congress or Senate.
I'm saying mayor, Congress, Senate, just, yeah, because it's like, we Black women, we got to make it happen. I mean, I know you've been making it happen, but it's like, yeah, we definitely, folks have to be there to support. We have to support each other. Otherwise, it's
Right.
not going to happen.
I'm going to tell you, it's from 53 from my late with that 33 years, 34, 35 years of just being aggressive, pushing political agenda and then running for office. It's like I've never, ever stopped. And I'm not saying absolutely not or never. I'm saying in my 50s, I need a committed movement of other people who say, well, yeah, one. And I'm not thinking you know, the old heads, we come back from the time of real organizing. And so, but I'm willing to work hard, but I can't be out here running and then look behind me and nobody's there.
Right.
I feel you on that. You know, I just saw this amazing documentary. It's not new. It's actually came out, I think, in the 90s called Freedom on My Mind. And it really talked about organizing. And I was really inspired by that. But what I've seen with male candidates is that, you know, a community tends to coalesce around a male candidate more than a female candidate. And we actually saw that with
Yes.
Vice President Kamala Harris. She didn't receive the support when she ran for president. I was one of a few people in Detroit that supported her early in the game.
I
But
did.
now, yeah, I'm
Right.
so glad that, you know, she is our VP, and I think she's setting a trend. And I just want to see this momentum continue for excellent female politicians such as yourself. You have so much more to offer, and I'm grateful that you're on our Detroit school board. But I'd see something for you on a national level as well, if you want
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Wherever the change, the good thing is, if you had a chance, and you guys may be too young to have had a relationship or know Clyde, but Clyde Cleveland, one thing that he told me and he taught me was one of the best politicians is number one, they want to say what they want to say, line up with that whatever advocacy issues that they want, or one who wasn't necessarily committed to being elected. And as much as I've been involved with politics, I've never taken the office or the title as the goal. I've taken the advocacy. So the legislature was a means to an end for me to talk about the injustice on criminal justice might not get reelected. And that's what's important.
Okay.
So I'm willing to always do it as long as I could take the fight for the people to whatever office where I will be. I love Detroit, and I just believe that city that is 80% access to affordable housing, clean water, great health care.
Right.
And we shouldn't be begging for pennies on the dollar when we're giving away, or this current administration is giving away buildings for penny on the dollar. But for a Black business person, not just the poster child, but the larger volume of African American businesses are not benefiting from this. But it will take a movement of people who think the same way in that regard. We don't have to agree on all things political, but we all should, to me, as African Americans, want to see our children and children's children benefit from Detroit's renewal. And that's, for me, that's as an ecosystem. I'm an educator because I believe that is the greatest opportunity in being productive citizens. But once they become graduate, matriculate through our school and go into college or to become an entrepreneur or wherever, they should be able to also stay and remain in their city and thrive. And if they have to leave to thrive, like many of the people did moving to Atlanta, something's not working for us all.
Right.
Right. No, and I definitely, yeah.
And people should see that. But there are a lot of selfish selfish African American leaders who are benefiting from this current administration, but not looking at the broader picture of how we all should benefit from the renewal.
Right.
I agree.
And I agree. And I think definitely, I know we started interacting, what was it? It was like last summer, not even this past summer, but the summer before when I reached out to the state reps, because I said, we had been doing expungement workshops, but we said, let's come together with the state reps and have a dialogue and educate folk. And even though you're a former state rep, you're still carrying up the mantle for the people, and that's what we need. We need to have, like you said, we don't need
Absolutely.
politicians. We need politicians that are really going to try to make it happen for Black folks, like to help us move forward as a people.
Yes.
Like you said, clean water. We should have good education,
Yes.
quality education. People should be able to clean their records. I mean, it's like,
Yes.
for me right now, I'm a hermit, but I mean, when I have gone out, I've seen the marijuana. You go out there, people can buy marijuana, but I still have former clients that have had 3 or 4 felonies for delivery manufacturing.
Yes.
And they're still not eligible. Yes, that we have the new legislation, which is a good start, but you still have folks out there that are feeling the effects of the prison industrial complex, whether
Yes.
folks
Yes.
that are
Yes.
making millions and billions of dollars selling marijuana, and it's just the racial disparity is just
Yes. Yes.
unacceptable,
Yes.
So
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It takes policy.
It's very disheartening. Very disheartening. And that our current governor, we have to also be willing to push and tell the truth. There are a number of people who are locked in these prisons who are non-violent offenders who could not get out with early compassionate release. There are a number of non-violent offenders who are looking forward to continue doing the work with you all. I'm glad that we have some sisters who are committed to this work, who are licensed attorneys. If I had listened to Congressman Conyers years ago, perhaps I would have explored becoming an attorney. He was just like pushed it so hard.
hey, well, there's
Not
still
too
time.
late.
Look, there's still
Yeah,
time.
you're young.
You are young yet. I
For
was
me
in
to
a class with a
consider.
woman that was
And
like,
I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to do that.
there's still time. Look, we got a pandemic. We don't know how long this pandemic is
Jeez.
going for. Look at Jill Biden. She went back and got her
Yeah,
PhD
you got
at
that.
5.
Yeah, Dr. Joe Biden.
Wow.
Well,
I'm looking at the PhD. Maybe we'll look at a JD, but we'll see.
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
You know,
3 years.
I'm glad there's so much talk about reform in terms of the criminal justice realm. And we've heard a lot of talk about and we've seen action in terms of blanket criminal justice reform, but also sentencing reform and bail reform. A lot's been going on in the juvenile justice sector, and I'm so glad that you're leading the charge with that, Sherry. You made a quote or gave a quote in the media recently about our former mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, and you said, quote, "He could lead amazing work for criminal justice reform. I believe Kwame
Yeah.
Kilpatrick will be an excellent example of redemption and grace." What do you see possibly for him in terms of that area with everything happening now?
So here's the thing. I think we have to reframe what criminal justice reform is, regardless from different party perspectives. There are some people, for me, I see it, everybody deserves a second chance, especially nonviolent offenders. For those more harsh crimes, rape, murder, I mean, that's a different story. But when we talk about nonviolent offenses, I believe we should rehabilitate and then return people back to society so they can contribute. When you in the language of Republicans, we're talking about the cost save. There is no debating that we would save enormous tax dollars if we were finding ways to truly rehabilitate and put people on the right path. Doing so, we save at our state and federal level. I mean, as an educator, it makes me cringe to think of, we spend $8,000 a year on one student. Yet we spend $35,000 a year on someone who's incarcerated. To lead and influence a program with our state at the federal government level, in the nonprofit sector, you name it. I mean, he could lead these efforts. City of Detroit has a clean slate department.
Right.
Whether it's with he could do that work and scale it, help to scale this work and advocate and move legislation so that we're not continue to have the same dialogue and hold our party accountable.
Right.
We got to look at the crime bills that came from Vice President Biden, as well as the prosecutorial role that President Kamala
That's
Harris
true.
played. We got to have somebody with a national future legislation that disproportionately impacts African Americans.
Right. I just
Well
saw there's
said.
a documentary on in Netflix that was talking about the crack epidemic and the disproportionate number of Black people, Black and brown people that are in the system. They're still there, even though we have a pandemic, even though there are people that are getting sick and dying. I know there are those of us that we filed motions to get our clients that are in jail and prison out of the system. Some of them have been released, some of them are still there. And particularly, like you said, nonviolent offenders, for people that got caught up, they're still the victims of the crime bill. We definitely, there needs to be, I definitely would like to see Kwame involved with that, as far as
Right.
this issue of redemption, helping the other Black and brown folk that are in the prison industrial complex, that they be released. There's all this discussion about helping folks with opioid addiction, and there's just it's such a disparate way that they're treating folks compared to other folks that with, the way they've treated folks with the cocaine and the crack and the marijuana. It's just a different, I'm like, we're all
huge difference, yes.
And
Yes.
people right now sitting in the prison cells that are nonviolent, that could be out there reconnected with their family. They need jobs, they need support systems. And, I would definitely like to see the Biden-Harris administration take that on.
I hope they do. I really think that they should address the aftermath of the crime.
And I'm hopeful.
I'm hopeful too. I really think there should be a form of crime bill of 1994 reparations, because that impact is still resonating today, as you said, Robyn, and that is something that needs to be done. These sectors of the community, Black and brown communities, have been primarily impacted. These communities our communities need to be made whole again. And I hope that this new administration will take it up and address it. But you're right, Sherry, we have to continue the advocacy. We have to press because it's not going to happen automatically, because there are so many issues in this country right now with the pandemic. And the list goes on and on. I'm glad that Biden's got this momentum and signed all those executive orders, took executive action, but there's still much more work that needs to be done.
Great deal more.
So thank you, Ms. Gay-Dagnogo, for joining us. For joining us for Politico Coffee. We look forward to seeing you on February 4th for our virtual Harriet Tubman expungement forum. So where you can tell us more about the legislation that you sponsored, the first, the One Bad Night Act, and all the other legislation as well. And keep doing what you do. And yeah, I see you on social media. You're out there. So we applaud you. And you have a blessed day, okay?
Thank you, Sherry. Happy New Year. See you soon.
You.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
God bless you and your family. Bye-bye.
Let's see how we do. Yeah, so.
Well, that was a great year. Very informative.
Yes, definitely. As I said, last March, we were set to have Sherry and the late Isaac Robinson and Tanisha Yancey. There was going to be March 15th, 2020, to talk about how to run for state rep. And Friday the 13th comes up, Rona came up in there, and that was it. It was just, I don't know. Time is it's so surreal how everything has been going on. It's only
because we're coming up on a year, because I remember I was in court on March the 12th, I think. the 10th or something like that. And then that's when the pandemic really hit. And I started wearing the PPE early. I actually wore it to court and people were laughing at me, snickering because I wore gloves and a mask and glasses. And, but I was being protective and, I even apologized to my clients, but he said, no, I understand. And the judge said, no, I get it, Attorney Martin. And then it just full blown, hit us, this pandemic. And we've been in it ever since, doing this remote court work. And I mean, it's surreal.
Right. And still this issue going on with the courts, some of the courts trying to start back up. Some of the courts have, even though not everybody's not vaccinated yet. And so there's still a risk of harm. But I know it's like, I know it's definitely got to be attention because you have the courts are backlogged and particularly, obviously, you have people that are locked up. They don't want their cases to be lingering in the system. So it's like you have the system has to balance that, but you also want to make sure everybody is safe. We've now, we had Donna Faye passed away and you had another sheriff. Now, yes, Sheriff Napoleon. We've
Commissioner Jewel Ware. I mean,
some doctors at the jail, the late Isaac Robinson, who was working with us with the expungement, and former State Rep Sherry Gay-Dagnogo on expansion of the legislation. And I know in my family, I've had some folks, I know you've had folks. And so it's just that got sick, some got sick and passed away. So it's just surreal. And now we've got this vaccine and it's like, I don't know if you've seen some of the reports. There was some reports yesterday, like they're saying there's a shortage going on with the vaccine. So it's like, we were told in the media, there was this discussion about, people are going to they'll be able to have the Pfizer and Moderna and get 2 shots. Now they're saying sometimes you get 1 shot and there's a delay 6 weeks. So it's just, everything's kind of up in the air right now. And I'm hoping with the new Biden administration, that Biden-Harris, that we can get some efficiency going on. Because I think the last time I looked today was like 415,000 have died from Corona. I know more have recovered. So we've had more.
Did you hear the projection? It's projected that by mid-February, 500,000 Americans will have expired or died from the coronavirus. I mean, that's just horrific. I mean, and one thing I do want to say is I understand that there's a current problem with people making appointments for their vaccinations, their inoculations, and they don't show up, and that ruins the vaccine. It can't be used because, it has to be kept at a certain temperature. And so it just gets thrown out. I mean, with these vaccine shortages, if people make appointments, they must keep them unless it's some sort of, a extreme emergency, because it's just irresponsible not to,
Right.
I know that lawyers, we had this conversation yesterday, lawyers are considered to be on the national level other essential workers, and so we're not in the 1A group to get vaccines. But you said that there is a state order from the governor that does declare lawyers in Michigan to be essential workers.
And your sound your sound went down a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah, but well, we got a call yesterday from a friend that was saying that they were doing vaccinations for frontline workers, but it's Schoolcraft. And then I called over and I said, okay, what's going on? And then I said, I looked up the regs because they said that lawyers are being declared frontline essential workers 1B, because we are exposed, particularly criminal defense attorneys are exposed when we go to the jails and visit with clients. We could be exposed to folks that have COVID. So, but they were not able to clarify when they were when I called over there yesterday, they said you had to have an appointment, and they were not able to clarify. I think my understanding right now is that lawyers are not considered frontline workers, or we're not considered first responders. It's like when I look under the regs, it said 1A said health workers, that they are 1A, phase 1A, and then we're under 1B. So with that,
I thought we're under 1C. Nationally, lawyers are 1C, other essential workers. But you said in Michigan we're actually 1B.
Yeah, the regs I looked up yesterday said that we're 1B frontline essential workers, but it has to be clear because and then when I go, I looked in Washington because I'm in Wayne County, but I'm on the border with Washtenaw. So I looked at Washtenaw. What they were saying for Washtenaw is for Michigan Medicine, St. Joe's, and IHA. They said something on their sites like wait for them to call you, like that they're backlogged, like that there were some people who were supposed to get shots right now, but because they're saying there's a shortage to wait a couple weeks into February. I had to get blood draw on, was it yesterday? And I did go to IHA for something else. And I did hear some people saying that they were there to get their vaccination. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's, again, we will see, hopefully in a relatively short period of time, they will get everything squared away. We're still it sounds like they're close to approving the Johnson & Johnson vaccination, which is only one shot, as opposed to Pfizer and Moderna, which is 2 shots, and the Pfizer one has to be kept at certain temperatures and things of that nature.
Yeah, I like the sound of that Johnson vax. 1 shot and you're good to go. I mean, who wants to keep coming back, for a vaccination? But, back to Sherry Gay-Dagnogo, my former state representative. I really enjoyed speaking with her and getting her insights on how instrumental she was in the release of our former mayor, Kwame Kilpatrick. And I don't know about you, but I know you've been on social media like me, and you've seen these different responses and reactions to his release. Some of them negative, some of them positive. But I want to congratulate you, Robyn, for taking up the mantle after the dearly departed Isaac Robinson, former state representative who passed away last year, in terms of getting this letter out and getting it to the former administration. And, there were several signatories to the letter, including Victoria Burton Harris, who's now the number 1 at Washtenaw prosecutor's office.
The assistant under Ellie Savitt, who is the Washtenaw County
prosecutor. That's the number 1. She's not the prosecutor, but she's number 1 beyond Ellie Savitt, right?
Right. She's under Ellie Savitt. And then I want to applaud you too as well, Tracey, because you were a signatory to that letter. I will I posted that letter before, and so I will post it, and we will definitely acknowledge the lawyers that were courageous. We did send that letter to the White House, and we did, I did send a communication to the White House. And I when I sent my second communication, I said, we want to make sure we want to have a pardon or clemency for Kwame, but we also want to look at the other brothers and sisters that are in the system, that we definitely want to see a broad expansion of the First Step Act, and I did talk to a person that was affiliated with that. It was a minister, and he was saying that they were kind of being quiet, I guess, about how they were administering things, because they were trying to make sure that they had the right supports for reentry. But I just, as I said, I've just recently watched the documentary on Netflix where they were talking about the crack conspiracy, and they were just talking about, they, in the documentary, they show President Reagan, and they show how he comes into office, and how they were saying, just say no.
War on drugs.
Yeah, the war on drugs. And it was crazy though, because it was kind of some of the same stuff that Michelle Alexander talks about in her book, The New Jim Crow, where it's just like, but it talks about how, we were sending money to the Sandinistas, and and dealing with the IRA Contras and things of that nature. So basically, we're sending money to the Latin American countries who are sending drugs into our community. That they did feature Congresswoman Maxine Waters. It was talking about how they were. It's like she said the CIA was aware that they were putting drugs into our communities, and then the community has an uproar. They get upset about it, and they go back to Reagan, and they say, we want something, they talked about, because Reagan gets in 81, 86, the Black community's upset. So the Reagan administration, even though they know how the drugs are getting into the community, I mean, the drugs, it's like the source is the biggest issue, but they were showing how they went after the drug dealers, and they locked up the drug dealers. And then they showed how Bush Sr. comes in, he continues with that campaign. President Clinton continues with that, and 3 strikes and you're out. And then Then there's another uproar in the community, the Black community, because they're like, okay, you passed stuff or laws, but now you got it was intense. They showed Black mothers that had been separated from their children for some petty offenses, locked up in prison for, for 20 years. But they said they were showing how the white counterparts they were using drugs too. They were using crack or cocaine going into the Black
But
community.
they were doing the white powder cocaine, and that's where the Fair Sentencing Act came in during the Obama administration, and that did a lot to rectify some things, but it didn't go far enough. It takes a concerted effort, and it needs to be ongoing, and that's why I say we do need crime bill reparations. Now, I want to bring this up. I was watching a program the other day, and it came up about this concept of vote reparations. And the concept of vote reparations works like this: people of color, Black, brown people who vote in future elections, their vote will count twice, not once, but twice. Now, why is that? Well, it's a really complex concept. It involves equal protection, but the main thrust of it is that, well, you had these groups of people that were disenfranchised so long through slavery, the whole Jim Crow era. There was poll taxes and the whole 9 yards, and our ancestors couldn't vote, disenfranchised from voting, still are today, by the way.
Right.
Even though we have the Voting Rights Act, but this is a way to correct past wrongs through vote reparations. It's very controversial. And, I would imagine there would be a lot of constitutional challenges, but I want to look into it more, and perhaps we could get someone on. There is a professor who is spearheading this, and his name escapes me, I'm sorry at the moment, but I would love to have him on to talk more about this concept of vote reparations and what that means. But I think we should have reparations across the board anyway.
Right. I know. See, that's the thing. We've had a political campaign, races. You had people talking about reparations, but now it's time to actually see things put into action. And I was really excited, as were many. I'm sure I was watching the inauguration, and with Biden getting in there and Harris, but it's like I started thinking about what reparations look like for Black folk. I'm like, it could be, I'm like, I have my list, because I teach a class, so I got my list. I know my students got a list.
Okay.
I got my list.
Right.
So it could be land. It could be like some Native American folk in Michigan, they can get a full ride to go to Michigan. So I feel like if you are a Black person or a descendant of slave, you should be able to go to whatever college you want to go to in the United States. A tax benefit. Maybe we shouldn't have to pay
a tax credit, a special tax credit.
Yep, a tax credit and money. Because
cash transfers. And I do think there should be more money allotted to early childhood development for Black and brown communities. Well, a descendants, what is it, ADOS? African descendants of slavery.
Of slaves, ADOS, yes.
Right.
And
slaves.
then and like when you talk about there's issues, we have so many issues that are specific to our community. Black infant mortality. We need to have funding going towards that. As I said, I teach at the college level, but as I teach at the college level, and then the work that I see as an educational advocate, we need to pour so much more into our K through 12 or even preschool. I know Ben Crum talks about that in his book. Preschool, like they were talking about, if the level of attention and support that are put into kids from preschool could be dictate what a child's future is. Like when I'm dealing with my cases, I do criminal, family, educational. I know you do family and juvenile, but when I'm dealing with my cases and I screen my clients, we always screen our clients. You listen to their backgrounds, and a lot of them you just hear about these. They have a parent in jail, a parent that has been caught up with the drugs, the drug problems, things like that. Mental health issues. Like right now, that's what I'm seeing. We're seeing in the midst of this pandemic, like we saw these issues before, but it's even being more exacerbated. It's even a stronger issue of I've clients that have mental health issues, and they don't have long-term places for them to go. They're homeless. Maybe they're not taking a medicine. The family can't deal with them. So then they're homeless. They're on the street. So then they end up in the jail. and they're in the
I
jail.
I agree.
But the
Yeah,
jail,
this pandemic has really illuminated all of these deficiencies and issues that we have in our criminal justice and court systems. I mean, housing is just a major problem, and now we're about to experience an avalanche of evictions. I'm glad to hear that the national moratorium on evictions has been extended to March 31st through this current administration. But then what about afterwards? We need cash transfers to these families. I really agree with Andrew Yang's concept of universal basic income. I understand he's going to go up against De Blasio in New York, and with his Yang gang, he's going to run for mayor of New York City. And I really appreciated his presidential campaign. But I want to get back to this before I lose this thought. You and I, we worked with the group, and I came across this statistic that just really alarmed me. You said you were aware of it already, that in terms of the prison industrial complex, the number of beds were determined by third graders in terms of their reading levels across the state. How about we reverse that and we work toward getting children in colleges instead of prisons, okay? And creating prison beds for these children, instead creating seats for them to be enrolled in colleges, universities, or high skilled training, because not everyone wants to go to college, but maybe they want to take up a skilled trade. I just, that just appalls me. And that's still going on to this day.
right? Because I remember when I was coming up, there was a book by Dr. Juwanja Kanjufu, The Conspiracy to Destroy Our Young Black Males. And he was talking about that too, that study that was done. And when he did it, it was the fourth grade, but then it's changed to
Oh,
the third grade. It's that they're saying now the third grade.
figures.
And again, it's just like with this pandemic, we have a lot of focus on the deaths, which we should be aware of the deaths, but we should also be focused on the fact that that there have been more recoveries from coronavirus than the deaths. And so, like, I like your idea. We should flip the script. We should talk about how many Black kids can we get into college? Can we get, we need more Black folk in sciences. We definitely, I've talked about it all the time. We only have 5% of lawyers are Black, even though our population is 14%. Like,
And doctors, only 5% US doctors are Black.
so we definitely need to pour more into our children to make sure that they're going on a positive path, as opposed to, and just be mindful that the kids, they are, there's this book called The Other Wes Moore, and it's two guys that are named Wes Moore that come from a rough circumstance. One of them becomes a Rhodes Scholar and an author, a celebrated author, a television commentator. The other one goes in prison, but they're both Wes Moore. They're both African-American, but they're affected by their environment. The other one went to prison, got caught up with the wrong crowd. The other one, the one that ended up being successful, he got caught up in the wrong crowd, but he got put into a boys' school, a military school, and his mother's family just really worked to get him on a positive path. And so there's so many children out there that if we pour more positivity into them, they could make such a difference in the world, as opposed to, like we've said, there are people, these politicians out there that are profiting. Like, I saw a case where there was a judge that in another state, he was investing in the juvenile detention facility. That's insane. That's unethical.
I don't know if that's the same judge who was actually um, making sentences based on the number of bodies that were needed in a juvenile detention center. That judge went to federal prison. So, I mean, that's ridiculous. But I do feel that we are at a moment of change. It's going to happen. It's the inevitable. I don't know what's going to happen in 2022. I don't know what's going to happen in 2024, but guaranteed they will both be interesting election cycles. And I want to talk now about our plans with Politico Coffee and how we're taking it to the next level, and the types of guests that we may have on, and the topics that we're going to cover. Talk a little bit more about that, Robyn. It's very exciting.
Yes, I think it is exciting that we're doing this. I know we've been on a hiatus, and we're going to be on break for a couple more weeks, but we are February. We're going to have a lineup of guests coming in, and we will be letting you guys know about. We'll have an email, and You can, give us questions if there's, if you have any suggestions for guests, things of that nature. Because we definitely feel that knowledge is power. I'm excited to partner with Tracey on this. I mean, I still will be doing Robyn Legal. I'll be starting up with doing some things with Robyn Legal that's focused on legal issues and legal guests, things of that nature. But I definitely think politics is important, that we engage with politicians, Republican, Democrat, Independent, that we have this dialogue with them to understand what they're doing, what are they doing to make change and help everybody, because it's we haven't even talked about it yet, what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. It's that was just insane. And then now we have a new administration, but then it's like it looks like there's still fighting going on, and it's like the people that are fighting, they got jobs, they have money. But then it's like, what about the people that are out there? They don't have jobs. They don't have a place to stay. They don't have food, clothing, or shelter. And it's like, we really need to make sure that we're focusing on the little guy, the people that are out there that are really suffering, because that's what it's about. America I love America. It's one of the wealthiest countries in the world, but America is looking like a hot mess. Like, it's embarrassing. I mean, I watch.
You wouldn't know it because, with stimulus checks, when you compare it to other countries like Canada, they give their constituents $2,000 a month. Doug said, my husband said that he read an article just today somewhere in Norway, someplace. Unbelievably, they give their constituents $10,000 a month during this pandemic to keep things going. We're supposed to be a superpower, and Americans have only received a $1,200 stimulus check and a $600 stimulus check. That is absolutely ridiculous. But I want to get back to this Politico Coffee. Politico Coffee is moving to YouTube. We'll be able to do live chats. We'll be doing some pre-recorded videos and putting them up, but also we'll have live shows with some exciting guests. I know some of the guests that we talked about are Attorney General Dana Nessel. We want to get to the bottom of what's happening in Flint, with this water crisis and these charges, 2 misdemeanor charges against former Governor Rick Snyder, the impact on the Flint community. We'd like to have Victoria Burton Harris, who's now at the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office. She is the deputy chief, correct?
Yeah,
she ran.
Chief, and Ellie Savage too. Yeah, have Ellie come out.
Ellie, yes.
Yeah, because
he's all in the media, all over the media, with his criminal justice reform.
I know they've been having some transition meetings, so they've been rolling out some really exciting policies. There's also, we've got Karen McDonald. We interviewed her before.
Oh, yeah.
Karen,
we've had some great guests. We had Abdul El Sayed. He's on CNN.
Yeah, we had Kim Worthy. We
Kim
probably
Worthy.
love to have her come back and talk about some of the things that she's doing in her office as far as reform, and also what her involvement with the Flint, with the situation with going after the folks that have basically poisoned the water in Flint,
Right.
and affecting, causing children in Flint. There have been 12 deaths, but there's also been people that had permanent children that have been permanently affected, and adults, by the poisoned water. And it's just, to me, again, it's insane to think about. We're in Michigan. We're surrounded by fresh water. You look at
it's so ironic, isn't it?
It's just so, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. We're supposed to be better.
It makes no sense.
We're supposed to be better. It's like, these are some third world country things that are going on here. It's just,
and still Nestle gets a permit to draw away water from the Great Lakes, and they're making buku bucks, billions of dollars. It makes no sense whatsoever. But also, Michigan Senator Sylvia Santana, I'd like to invite her to the show because there's been big news regarding reform in terms of juvenile justice, and you've got all these exciting expungement clinics coming up online. Talk more about that. You have one coming up February 4th with Black Women Lawyers Association of Michigan, and you've got this all-star panel lineup with Attorney Stuart Friedman. I worked with him. We did in person, this was before the pandemic, expungement clinic that was hosted by Sri Tanadar, who is now a state representative in District 5. And he did an excellent job along with attorney Belinda Good, who shout out to the attorney B. Good. She turned 70.
And happy
She had-
birthday. Yes, happy
yeah,
birthday.
happy birthday.
Yes, so
And so, yeah, tell us more.
yeah, so we have this lineup coming up on February 4th from 6 to 8. It's going to be, if you go to the Black Women Lawyers of Michigan page, the flyer will be there. I know I'll be posting the flyer as well, but it's going to be virtual. I mean, normally we'd be in person, but we've got to be safe. We've had to adapt. So we're going to have a panel of state reps. We're going to have David LeGrand, who's been very instrumental in dealing with the new expungement legislation. Former state rep.
It's kind of confusing for some people, even lawyers.
Yeah, even lawyers, because I went to the workshop that attorney Margaret Rabin did for criminal defense attorneys in Michigan, and she was talking about how it's confounding for lawyers. So just imagine if it's confounding for lawyers, how is that 13 statutes? How is that going to be for lay people? So we've got Representative David LeGrand, who's been spearheading the issue, former state rep Sherry Gay-Dagnogo, state rep Tanisha Yancey, who was a lawyer and who's also been spearheading the issue, Senator Moss. We've got Representative Jewel Jones.
Is that Jeremy Moss? Jeremy Moss.
Oh, maybe Jeremy Moss. Okay, he was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got the Honorable Judge Deborah Thomas, who is the
she's expungement queen, right?
Yep, the expungement queen. We've got attorney Rita White. We've got myself. So we're going to have it'll be from 6 to 8. We'll do the first panel with the state reps. Then we'll have the second panel with the legal experts. Then we have an award ceremony where we're going to be doing something. We'll be giving out 3 awards to some of our worthy members. So everybody stay tuned for that. We've got some really exciting things coming up. We just had, if you go to our Facebook page, you can see we did our last meeting where we invited out some doctors. We had Dr. Rondé White, we had a doctor from Florida, and we had Dr. Ijeoma Opara come out and talk about some of the stuff that we've already talked about on the show, like these concerns about the vaccines and about suggestions for combating COVID, and also this fear. It's a valid fear that Black folk have. You're not all that eager to, because of the Tuskegee experiment, things of that nature. We're not all that eager to go get a vaccine when we know that our government, look, not just African Americans, Native Americans too. There's people giving Native Americans blankets with smallpox in it. It's like, I know there was a comedian on Saturday Night Live. He said he'll go get the vaccine. What did he say? He'll go to when they're giving it to the white folks. He's like, if they're giving it to the white folks, I'm gonna go to the white line. I mean, it's funny, but it's funny, but it's actually, I mean, I can understand that. Some people.
Oh, before I forget, I got to tell you about this. So I know someone who lives in Oakland County, Troy to be exact, and this person is in the 1A group, and the person called the line to set up a vax appointment. And this person was directed to, okay, let me put this in context. While the person was calling and being interviewed, the receptionist asked the individual, well, are you African American? And the individual responded, yes. And so then the customer service person says, well, then you should go to TCF Center, and directed the individual to TCF Center, which is about 45 miles from where the individual lives. It's not convenient. Why would you do that? I mean, I thought that was rather bizarre. And but at any rate, the person did go get the vaccine and the first shot, and will be going back again for the second shot. But I thought that was rather suspicious, and I put that out on social media, and a lot of people were reacting to it, and they thought it was odd, and they said, yeah, this is why I don't want to get the vaccine yet. I'm going to take the wait and see approach, or if I get the vaccine, I'm going in the suburbs, I'm not going in the city. Right. But this is what this engenders.
They have legitimate concerns. I mean, what all the reports I've gotten, the folks I've talked to who have gotten it so far have mostly been medical people, doctors. What they have said is the first shot, they have not had a bad reaction, but they said the second shot, they have had some side effects. They had, one of my doctors said 12 hours, she was sick. So it is, you do have to make sure, if you get it, maybe get it on a Friday when you have time to rest up. My concern is, again, listening to what's happening in the news, is if you get the first shot, I would want to make sure I can get the second shot right away. Because first they said you need to have the first and second shot with a certain time period. Now they're expanding that time. Then there's the concern you've got the UK mutant strain and South Africa mutant strain. So it's like, I
Right.
sure it's like, if you get the vaccine, I would want to hope, because they're not clear. We're guinea pigs. Nurse Pam is like tracking all of this, but we're guinea
I
pigs.
wish we could get Nurse Pam on the line. Nurse
Maybe.
Pam, if you're listening,
Yeah,
please join us in 2021.
yeah, maybe we can get Nurse Pam. She always has her commentary. I'm like her parrot, I guess. So maybe we can get Nurse Pam to give us to come on and give us some of her words of wisdom. But yeah, I'm definitely, I would say overall, I'm excited. We're in 2021. 2020 was a hot mess. 2021 is still, it's a mess. Larry King is gone. Hank Aaron is gone. You've had judges. We've had Judge Dalton Roberson, who was a wonderful judge, very personable, passed away. Paula Humphreys, Penny, Judge
Yes.
Cylinder. And I'm not saying not everybody necessarily passed from COVID, but we don't know if they could have, as I said, in my family, I don't know. There's some people that passed from COVID. Some people, it may have hastened their death because of all the fear that's out there. And then we can't even have regular funerals. We've got to have virtual funerals because it's, if a person does have COVID, it's like there's a concern that you go to the funeral and then you might get it. You might, or even maybe not the person that passed away, but you can't even be around your family. And that's just for me, I'm a very personable person. I like to be around folks, hug people, but it's all that's out the window. It's just, I'm like a hermit.
Well, I admit I'm a germaphobe and I always have been, but this has had major impact on me. And I would like to dedicate today's broadcast to all of the people who have succumbed to COVID and who have passed away in 2020 and 2021. 2021 just seems like a carryover from 2020. It just blurs, one right into the other. But specifically, I would like to dedicate this broadcast to the late Judge B. Penny Millender, who passed away recently of natural causes. She was on the bench at 36th District Court in Detroit. I knew her. She was always lovely to me. I had one case with her and on the general civil docket, and she was always very gracious and she was very knowledgeable in the law. And I would also like to dedicate this broadcast to Wayne County Circuit Court Judge, retired, the late Judge Isidore Torres, who did pass away from COVID-19 on January the 12th. And early in my career, I had multiple cases with Judge Torres, and he really was, in a way, a mentor. He was very inspiring to me, taught me a lot during settlement conferences. And he really came from a very humble background, came from really nothing. And he, became a lawyer. And then he was the first Latino judge to be appointed to the bench at 36th District Court, and also the first Latino judge to be appointed to the bench at 3rd Judicial Circuit Court. So my hat's off to Judge Millender. Her father was an attorney. The Millender Center was named after her father, Robert Millender.
Judge Millender and Torres, beautiful, beautiful people. I've appeared before. Yes. I also want to dedicate it to the retired Judge Dalton Roberson, who was very, I interacted with him more once he was retired, but he was still a visiting judge, just always very positive, uplifting. Linda McGee and I will do our choices and consequences, or what to do when stopped by the police. He welcomed our high school students into his courtroom, let them observe some of the proceedings, and then even talk to them. So definitely we've had some very kind and compassionate judges that have passed either from COVID or not. And it's just this has been an intense situation. We haven't been able to go to funerals or weddings, or you're not able to fellowship. We're on social media. It's like we're having to learn a new way to navigate. And even when the pandemic is over, some of this stuff is really good. It can be positive, but it's still, it's intense. It's taking its emotional toll. Specifically, I think about children. How are children, I just think about how intense it is for children to have COVID, to have the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. I know we had our membership, which we're both members of Black Women Lawyers in Michigan. They reached out to us. So we wrote a resolution condemning what happened at the Capitol, and we sent it to Congresswoman Dingell, Senator Peters, Senator Stabenow, saying that they need to deal with all the insurrectionists and there need to be consequences. Just like, like I see all the time there's consequences in the criminal courts and the state courts, federal courts for folks. They can't, all these things about excuses and stuff. No, the judges are like, no, you did wrong. You got to have consequences. I'm not saying you couldn't look at collateral issues, mental health issues, but the thing is, you're doing wrong. You got to wish children are watching it. I mean, I watched one news story where they showed these kids. It was a mixture of kids, Black, white, Latino, and there was this one little girl, and she said she saw that stuff on TV with the insurrectionists, and she was scared that they were going to come into. It was a little blonde girl. She said they were scared they were going to come into her house and harm her. And I'm like, it's like that's what the grown-ups really have to get it together for these children. The children are watching us right now. They are watching our behavior. We have got to the world is watching us. America is, you see, I have Black Lives Matter. And yes, I have Black Lives Matter with the American flag because I love America. Okay, I love America. But America has got to get it together. America, I'm an optimist, but I also look at reality. Okay, I'm not just like rose-colored glasses. I'm an optimist, but America, it's not looking good. I've been to South Africa. I studied apartheid. America has elements. We're in an apartheid system right now. We got to get it together. We got to fix race, class, gender. We got to get it. The world is watching. The children are watching. We have so much a possibility for good. We've got our first Black, Indian, vice president. We got Joe Biden in there. So, but the people, I'm looking at the people of Congress and the Senate specifically, they need to get it together, okay? Because it's just, they need to get it together. Folks got to get
congressional approval ratings are at an all-time low, 15%. Now, what does that tell you? That is abominable. And, I'm a journalist by training and also an attorney, as you know, but I do tend to be somewhat of a cynic. It's, my personality and my career choices, but I'm trying to be more positive, with my tea and my, I got this from my two daughters, a shout out to Amber and Charmaine, aromatherapy kits, and it's got all these great, essential oils, and they really do help. But I think that this country is experiencing tremendous change. And while I condemn the events that happened at the Capitol, I think this is a dangerous time for free speech and censorship. What happened at the Capitol was clearly wrong. There was malicious destruction of property, gun violations, trespass violations. Was it sedition? I don't know. That remains to be seen. We don't have actual federal terrorism law. We have a definition of domestic terrorism on the books, but we don't have a domestic terrorism law. Now that needs to develop, I think, in this country.
Right.
But people have to be careful about their civil liberties, because now you see this lockdown, this censorship happening. It's happening all across the board on social media. And yes, while it was wrong what happened at the Capitol, I'm an American. I have rights to free speech. Not doing that, I would never espouse what happened at the Capitol. But if people have different viewpoints, different views, as long as they're being respectful, I don't think they should be shut down. And that's a whole nother show. And we're going to have some good
we will probably, I'm sure we will
for you about that.
Have some panelists and some experts come in and talk about this. I will say this: you do have the right to freedom of speech. However, if you incite somebody to go commit violence that results in the death of police officers, or you're trying to hang the speaker, Nancy Pelosi, you see, I got the thing about the woman's places in the house. That's Nancy Pelosi.
Okay.
No, I'm saying Nancy Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi, the Vice President Pence, things like that. No, because see, I'm like, as I said, I'm right now in the trenches. I've got clients that on state cases that are dealing with charges, and people aren't trying to say, oh, they have a right to freedom of speech. Oh, we need to treat them with kid gloves. So it's like, again, we need to be consistent. you know, you
But
have.
there was a double standard. I think that we saw a double standard because my thought was, well, where's everybody? Why did it take so long for the National Guard to get there? Also, I want to take the opportunity to give a shout out to Status Quo, my compadres at Status Quo, and Jordan Cheriton, who is going to be a guest on this show in the near future, talking about all of his great investigative journalism when it comes to the Flint water crisis situation. I'm a member of Status Quo, and what I want to say about that is that you may have seen video B-roll that rode all across the country. It had the banner Status Quo that showed the Capitol Police officer, Daniel Hodges. He was the one that was pinned up and he was yelling, screaming, hollering for his life. Well, we had a photographer out, not Jordan, excuse me, John Farina. Jordan Cheriton is the CEO of Status Quo. He was the one that actually shot that video. I don't know how that guy got it. He was in the middle of that pepper spray, mace. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. Looked like they were doing a human battering ram trying to get into the Capitol, which they didn't get into the Capitol in that particular hallway. And amazingly, that Capitol police officer, Daniel Hodges, said that he loves his job so much that he would do it for free. That this incident on January the 6th did not deter him from doing his job in the future. But shout out to Status Quo for doing all this great work on the Flint water crisis. And Jordan Cheriton, he's got some really interesting things to say about his research and the charges, the 2 misdemeanor charges against Governor Snyder. I find it interesting that there was a change of venue motion, and it looks like it's going to district court in Lansing. It's getting
Well,
out of Tennessee
yeah,
County.
I mean, I know. Again, we have some things to talk about. I mean, I know there's some folks that were wrongfully incarcerated that have reached out to me about coming on the show. I
Great.
definitely like for us to hear from some folks from Flint, like that are on the streets that are directly
Yes.
impacted. So, you know, as I said, look out. We'll give you our we'll put out our email, Politico Coffee 2020@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter, Robyn _legal. Facebook, Instagram. We'll put all our handles out there. So reach out to us. And again, thank you all for joining us. Everybody just stay safe. Just
stay strong.
Stay safe, stay well. And you know, I probably will have some more. You know, I did those videos for people who want to protest. If you want to protest, you can protest. But also I got my video still for how to protest peacefully. Stay your ass at home. Okay, folks, we in the middle of a pandemic. Okay, I thought about releasing my video again while we're waiting for stuff with inauguration, because I know people.
You should.
I will, because it's like you want to be out there in the streets, but it's like you got the pandemic. Now you got crazy people. You don't know who's for you on the left or the right. You don't know who. It's just crazy.
Right.
You got to just
and
be.
Also, I don't know, a lot of people may not be aware of what's happening on the West Coast in Denver, Portland, and Seattle. There's been a lot of Black Bloc activities happening where, you know, there's protests daily. There was a protest on the day of the inauguration of Joseph Biden. You know, the Black Bloc, they use Black Bloc techniques. They dress in all black. They carry black umbrellas, you know, to deter detection from the surveillance state. And they were burning the American flag, and they were saying that they do not believe that Joe Biden is a legitimate president. Now, these are people on the hard left. Okay, so like you said, it's coming on all sides. Okay, extreme right, extreme left,
Right,
and then you have what's happening in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. We're going to talk more about that the things are happening.
And people need to know too, you know, people want to be protesting. I'm not saying you shouldn't protest. I did protest. I went to the Million Woman March. Okay, me and my girls went. You see Marsha and Joan, we went up. Okay, but you got to understand, you go into certain environments, you catch a case. Yes, there are some lawyers out there volunteer to get you released, but there are some situations where you might get caught with some stuff. Like you got to think about, I mean, if you're going to run for office and maybe you want to have a record, but some folks may go into college and may want to go corporate. And so you definitely need to think about, it's not to say you shouldn't protest or have the activist spirit. You'll probably see me out there when it's safe again. Okay, I'm not going to just bring it out there, but I'm going to be protesting on social media. We can be creative, okay? Like I said before, you can do a rap, a music video. I mean, we just got so much stuff going on. We got Corona, you got people out there, you don't know who's for you or against you. It's insane. It's just, I was just I loved the inauguration, but a lot of us were on edge. People couldn't sleep. It's like, I wanted to see, you can see I was a Biden, no disclaimer, I was a Biden-Harris supporter, but I'm all nervous. I'm like, somebody said maybe they should do it in a bunker. And so I'm glad everything turned out. They had the military, turned out well, but you still got some folks out there that need
But nobody was on the streets in DC. There was nobody. So, and I couldn't sleep either.
As I said, if y'all got some mental health, y'all got some thoughts out there, go see a therapist. I'll put some stuff out there for y'all that having some thoughts or whatever. Because remember, because I'm telling you, I got folks that are in jail. They was thinking one kind of way and they acted some kind of way, and now they in jail. And now they looking at felonies and charges like that. So y'all, I understand your freedom of speech. You can do a poem, but you got to be careful. Y'all got to be careful in the way you all do stuff, because everybody's affected, but obviously disproportionately Black and brown people. People talk about the Capitol. If it had been Black folk, first of all, Black folk wouldn't have been trying to bum rush up in there anyway. They wouldn't have been. But I mean, they would have pulled us down. It would have even been. And that's just gets me, is that people got to get up in there, act a fool, and then they got to leave. I couldn't even imagine Black folk. It'd have been a wrap. It's just.
But it was interesting, the types of people that participated in that Capitol riot, and you even had an Olympic gold medalist, and you had psychologists, doctors, lawyers. I saw an article in the American Bar Association Journal. A lawyer was arrested, and people from all walks of life. And I just think that we're in the age of protests. This is just the beginning, not the end. And people you need to listen to your seminars and your webinars so that they can get the techniques on how to protest peacefully and legally, so that they don't catch a record. Because I believe in free speech. I know that you do. I'm totally about the First Amendment. And I participated in protests. I participated in the National Action Network protest locally, but it was completely peaceful. We actually had a police escort. We marched down Woodward, and I tell you, I felt great participating in that protest because I felt like I was doing something. It was really cathartic, And when I went back to court, people said, "Oh, I saw you in that protest." And, some people thought it was great. And some people are like, "Ooh, what's a lawyer doing out there?"
Lawyers, if we can protest, I marched, like when the affirmative action cases were being heard at the Supreme Court. I marched. That's where my sister and I connected with Kwame Kilpatrick when he was the mayor of Detroit. We took a picture.
Okay.
So and then, as I said, the Million Woman March. I mean, when I was at Michigan, I protested in the pro affirmative action debates and stuff, like rallies. But again, I said I was a political action chair. I was like, okay, we're gonna go to do some protests and rallies, but the biggest thing we're gonna do, you got to think about this strategically. We're gonna go to school, we're gonna do our work, and we're gonna graduate law school so we can become successful lawyers. Because there are some people that protested back in the 60s that protested themselves out of school. They didn't get their degree, and then to me, what's it all for? You're supposed to try to get your degree, go out there and do something, help folks. But if you protest, you go to jail, and then you get a record and it hinders you from advancing. I mean, I understand,
But that's where we come in with, that's where you come in with the expungements.
I understand. I got John Lewis's book. I understand people talk about trouble. Yeah, good trouble. But it's got to be a balancing act, because that's just, for me, you know, you and I both, we've done criminal defense. I've seen so many Black and brown people coming through the system, and they went out and protest. Like I had some brothers in Taylor, they went and protested, and they were protesting, but the white folks interpreted what they were doing as something else. And then thankfully we got it thrown out. We had a righteous judge.
Okay.
Shout out to
great. Congratulations.
Yeah, we had a
good
righteous
job.
thrown out. But still, it's just not the same. You not gonna get, you look, I understand. You hang with folks and you think you like them and you gonna get treated a certain kind of way. No, then you get slapped in the face. You get reminded you a Black person in America. I'm just, you gotta be real. Yes, there are a lot of positive things that are going on here, but you gotta keep it real. You gotta think strategically. Boycott. Martin Luther King too talked about, it doesn't always have just to be protest. It can be boycotting, like corporations that are racist, sexist, classist, all of that. So
general strikes, right? Right. Well, I see we're coming up on the 2 hour mark, and I know that you've got a lot to do. And this was a great program today. I was so glad we could get the Honorable Sherry Gay-Dagnogo to join us and talk about the executive clemency of our former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. You know, we will try to get him on the show too. And it's been great. So really enjoy this, Robyn, and I look forward to our new home on YouTube with the channel, and it's going to be fun and informative.
Yes, and so this has been Robyn and Attorney Robyn McCoy and Attorney Tracey Martin with Political Coffee. So stay tuned. We'll be back in February with a lineup of some exciting guests, and everybody just, again, stay safe, be calm, keep it cool. So everybody, peace and blessings, and we'll talk with you later.